Hey everyone, welcome back to the C Sharp for Unity series. In this episode, we will dive into one of the most important concepts in programming, decision making statements. And there are two more important concepts, looping and branching statements, but we will cover them in upcoming videos. In this episode, you will learn how to control the flow of your game using decision making statements, such as if else, and switch statements. Decision making statement helps your game respond to certain conditions like is the player dead? If yes, then do this. Or is the score 100? If yes, show the winning screen and etc. Okay, so now enough talking. Let's jump right in. So, first of all, let me create a script. Let's name this. Let's name this decision. Let's open the script. So, now let's quickly understand what decision making statements are, and then we will move on to some examples. So decision making statements like if else and switch helps the programmer in making a decision whether to execute a block of code or not based on certain conditions. So these decision making statements work on certain conditions, and that's why they are also known as conditional statements. So now if someone asks you about conditional statement, don't get confused. They are just asking you about decision making statements. Now let's move on to our first conditional statement, which is if statement. So let's write the syntax. First, let's understand the syntax. If, and here we give an condition, and then we open a curly bracket. So this is syntax of our if statement. Before understanding if statement, let me tell you what a syntax is. In grammar, we have certain rules. Same here, we have certain rules to write our code in correct order so that it makes sense. Okay, so now let's quickly see some examples of if, and then we will move on to other topic. So now I will create one int type of variable which will store our player health. Okay, and it's equal to like 50. And now let's create a void start method. Yeah, so now what we will do inside void start, we will check if the player health is greater than 0, then print player is alive. So now for doing that, we need to pass in player health variable and use operator in order to check whether the player health is greater than 0 or not. So here what we will do, if, and inside this if, we need to pass a condition where we will check something that will return a boolean value. So whatever condition we will pass inside this parameter or in if, we should always make sure that they return true or false value. Okay, so now let's, okay, so now here what we are doing is we are passing player health inside if condition, and here we are checking if the player health is greater than 0, then print hello. Okay, so now let's see what happens. We need to attach this script to a game object first. Let's disable our previous game object and let's create new. We'll name this decision. Just ignore the spellings. Okay, so now we should get output here like player is alive. Okay, we printed hello here. So here you can see we got our output hello. So now what if player health is, like, we turn this condition into if player health is greater than 100, then only print player is alive. Okay, so in this case, as you can see, our player health is 50, and what we are passing in condition is player health is greater than 100. So this condition will turn out to false, and this block will never get executed. So let's see what happens. Let it compile again. Okay, so now when I hit play, As you can see, we didn't got anything on the console. So this thing here, which I am highlighting, is operator. So we will understand about operators in next videos, but currently let's focus on decision making statements. So now let's understand another example of if. Now we will check a boolean value. Okay, bool. Wait a minute. Bool is game over. Okay, is game over equal to false, or we will just leave this empty and we will make it true here. Don't worry, I will explain everything. Just let me write first. So here what we have done is we have created one boolean variable which is game over, and here inside void start we are turning that is game over into true. And then what we will do, we will create one if statement where we will say is game over. If is game over equal to true, then do this, like print player is okay, game is not over. Okay, so now let's check what happens. So here, as you know, we created a boolean variable which is game over, and inside word start we are turning this is game over to true, and then we are checking if is game over is equal to true, then do this, like it will print a line onto the console which is game is not over. So now let's see what happens. So as you can see, we got game is not over on the console. So what if this value is false? Okay, let's turn this value to false. And here what we are checking, if is game over is equal to true, this we don't worry, we will understand about operators in next video. Just currently focus on this decision making statement. So here what we are checking, if is game over is true, then print this line, but our is game over is false for now. So let's see what happens. So as you can see, we haven't got any output. Okay, so now let's understand one more example, and then we will move on to else. Okay, and else is really simple, but let's see a quick example for now. So I'll start if get component rigid body is not equal to null. Don't worry, I will explain you. Let me write it first, and then we will just print. Okay, so now what we are doing. So here we are just checking whether our game object, whichever the script is attached to, has a rigid body or not. If our game object doesn't have any rigid body, this will simply print a message. Sorry, if our game object has a rigid body, it will print rigid body is there. Okay, so let's see what happens. First of all, let's attach rigid body to our game object. Now let's see what happens. So as you can see, rigid body is there, got printed. So now let's remove rigid body and see what happens. So as you can see, we haven't got any output. And don't worry about these lines because these are some advanced topics and I will cover them in next video. Okay. So now let's understand the else quickly because it's simple. Okay. So now let's assume that if we want to execute any other any other condition, if this condition gets false, here comes the else. Okay, so let's understand the syntax of else, then we will move on to the some examples. So let's quickly remove these lines. Okay, so if condition and then else. Okay, so this is a syntax of else. So let's and also one main thing, guys, note this down. We always need an if block in order to use else block, because the else block is dependent on a condition. Okay, so let's remove this and see some examples. We will see the examples on top of that if, the examples which we seen in if. So here first of all, let's create a variable again, int a is equal to 50, and here what we will do, if a is greater than or equal to 50, then do this print like yeah, a is 50. Okay, and inside else block, what we will do, else print a is not 50. Okay, so what here we declared int a equal to 50, a variable which is 50, and here inside if we are checking whether if a is equal to 50, then print a is 50, and else print a is not 50. Okay, so here as a is 50, the if block will get executed. Okay, so let's see what happens. So here as you can see a is 50. Now let's decrease our a value to 40. Let's see what happens. So here as you can see we got a is not 50. Okay, so from this what you understand is, if the condition is false, the else block will get executed. Okay, means whatever condition which we put inside our if that is false, then our else block will get executed. Okay, so now let's see another example, and this time we will take a bool, and here what we will do, we will turn a is equal to true, and then inside if we will say, if a is equal to true, a is true, and a is inside else we will print a is false. So now let's quickly see what we get on the console. So now as you can see we got a is true. Now let's quickly turn our a to false and see what happens. Yeah, so as you can see a is not, oh wait a minute, a is false, sorry, but you understood that the else block got executed. Yeah, so now let's quickly see one another example, like we will attach a rigid body to a component if a rigid body is not present. Let's see that example. Okay, so now let's quickly create if block, if get component rigid body dot, sorry, not equal to null. Let's print rigid body is there. Okay. And inside else, what we will do, if rigid body is not present, we will attach one. Okay. Else here we will first print no rigid body, comma, applying one or attaching. Okay. And here what we will do, I'm really sorry. Yeah. So here what we will do, game object dot add component, and here we will add a rigid body. Okay. Yeah. Here by mistaken. Okay. So now let's see what happens. So let it pause. Let's clear this. And here, as you can see, we don't have any rigid body to our player. Now let's see when I hit play. So see, no rigid body applying one. Okay. And here rigid body got attached to this game object. Yeah. So this was about else. I hope so you understood this if and else. Now we will move on to the switch. Before moving on to the switch, first let me quickly explain you what this get component and game object add component. What are these? Okay. So here get component is a generic built-in method provided by Unity, which returns the component attached to same game object. And here this game object is an inherited property from monoBehavior class, which refers to the game object the script is attached to. And here add component is nothing but you assume that add component will add a component to the game object whichever it is attached. Okay, don't worry guys, the things which I explained now are some advanced topics which we will learn in upcoming videos. So don't worry if you haven't understood them, just focus on decision making statement for now. Alright, now you have understood about if and if else. So let's move to switch statement now. The switch statement is used to simplify complex if else if chains when checking a single variable against multiple possible values. So you can assume that a switch is an alternative for multiple if else statements. So first let's understand the structure or a syntax of switch, and then we will see one example. Okay, so here switch to use, we just type switch keyword, and we pass in variable, and then we open curly braces, and then we type a keyword called case, and then we type a value. Okay, and then we use break. Okay, yeah. So here is a proper syntax of a switch. So here what's happening is, let me explain you. Okay, so case here, each case represents a possible value of the variable. Okay, so here we put another value. If the variable value matches to this value, then this case block gets executed. Okay, and break here is used to exit the switch block after a case is executed. Okay, so means this case get executed, then this break will just terminate the execution and prevent the cases to, like, prevent the switch block to fall through, like from multiple if we don't use break, this switch will just fall through and check all the conditions. Okay, and here default block, this is a default block, so default runs if none of the cases matches. Okay, so now let's understand this with a short script like code, and then you will have a proper understanding. So here we will just keep this for now, and we will declare a new variable, like we will use string for now. Okay, string, and we will name it weapons or weapon equal to mm, bow. Okay, and we will create switch, and we will pass in our weapon, means a variable. Okay, and then we will open the curly braces of switch, and then we will pass in the cases. Okay, so first case we will pass that our weapon is like gun. Okay, and then, oh sorry, this is a string, as you know, so string should be always written in like double quotes, gun. Then we will print you choose gun, or let's say gun only, and then we will use break. So as you can see, when we use break, oh sorry, so as you can see, when you use break, what will happen, switch will just like if this condition gets true, this will get printed, and break, like this will just terminate the further execution and return whatever got case got true. Okay, so now let's make another case, and we'll name this case like sword, and then we will print sword. Don't worry, I will explain it clearly again, and then we will use break. Okay, so now I'm really sorry I used. Okay, so now we will, oops, okay, sorry for mistake. So now I will use a default block. Two cases are enough, and print default block. Okay, and here break. Okay, so yeah, let's understand the execution, and then we will see what's the output. So here what happening is, we created a string type of weapon variable which stores bow in it. Okay, so inside switch what we are passing weapon. So we are passing weapon variable inside switch, and weapon has bow in it. So case 1 is checking whether the what is stored inside weapon. So here weapon stores bow, and here case is gun. So this case will turn out to be false. Then it will go to another case, and it will check again, and again the case will be turned to false, and then default block will get executed. So now let's see what happens. And don't worry guys, if you are not able to understand this, you can freely ask your doubts in comment section, or you can just go to my Instagram and like DM me there. I'm there for solving all of your doubts. Okay, so now let's hit play and see what happens. So here you can see, just ignore this, these are this is for our if. Here default block got executed inside the switch. Okay, because the condition any case haven't evaluated to true. So now let's put a bow inside gun. Okay, sorry, let's put bow instead of gun. And here what will happen now, when switch will check for cases. So our first case will get true, and then we will get an output like bow. Okay, we will also check what will happen if we didn't use a break. So let it compile, it takes a lot of time. Okay, S- so now let's see what happens. So here as you can see, we have got our output bow. Okay, so now let's see what will happen if I just don't use break. As you can see, we are directly getting an error message here only, but let's see inside console what we will get. Okay, So here you can see we have got an error. Control cannot fall through from one case level, okay, to another. So the break is necessary. So what will happen if we don't give any default block? Okay, let's move this default block. It will not cause any error. Let's see. As you can see, it didn't cause any error. But what will happen if our conditions, like any of the condition doesn't match, like any of the variable value doesn't match? So it will, let's change, first of all, let's change this value to gun again, and here also gun. So now as you can see, like we are checking for bow, but gun, there is no any case which is related to bow, and this will just will not return anything. Okay, let's hit play. So as you can see, we haven't got any output from the switch because we haven't used any default block. So default block gets executed if any if like no case is true, like evaluated to true. Okay, then the default block gets executed, means all the cases are false, then the default block will get executed. Okay, yeah, I hope so you understood this switch if and if else. If you have any doubt, you can just ask in comment section. Okay, if you found this tutorial or lecture helpful, please drop a like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video where we will cover loops in Unity. Okay, so please make sure to support the channel. Yeah, thank you for watching, guys.